Hey there, everyone. Welcome to DeProgram with John Kiriakou over there on the right side of the screen.
Welcome back.
Me, Ted Rall, where you can see me on the other side of the screen. It's Wednesday, June 25th, 2025. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we've got a full show for you and some exciting news to talk about coming up in about 48 hours. We'll get into that, and we will let you know what I'm talking about here. So the political world is reeling about the New York City primary election results. We'll, of course, talk about the stunning win of Zohran Mamdani and where the Democratic Party, particularly the National Democratic Party, goes from here. But wait, there's also more. It turns out that the United States may have spent about $1 billion to break a door and put a hole in the ground with no significant impact whatsoever on the nuclear program in Iran. A huge embarrassment, if true, for the Trump administration, and they're trying to spin wildly to get out of it. We'll get into that too. In Texas, the state's decision has been to get rid of all red flag laws.
Yeah.
So that's, of course, significant debate is popping up, as you can imagine, around that. And Shell wants to buy British Petroleum, which could completely reshape the global energy sector. I would say at a key time, but it's always a key time when it comes to energy prices. There's never a time when, the energy sector doesn't matter much. Yeah. So, John, let's get off to the races. I assume you heard the news over there. We have a new Democratic nominee. No one saw this coming. Well, Andrew Cuomo didn't see it coming. I just finished writing a piece that I just submitted to the Wall Street Journal like minutes ago before we went on the air, where I basically argued that, not only was Cuomo, kind of arrogant and didn't run a great campaign, and he thought that he could just sort of make do with the usual endorsements.
Yeah.
In this particular case, I think the endorsements hurt him.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Go ahead.
I happen to be in Spain right now, and I can't get CNN, which is cool. So I've been watching BBC. And BBC has had a very interesting take on this race. And it's unlike anything that I've seen in the last 18 hours in the American press. BBC is saying that contrary to what mainstream Democrats want you to believe, these endorsements count for literally nothing. And as you just said, if anything, having one discredited mainstream Democrat demand that you give your vote to another discredited mainstream Democrat, it serves to only piss people off. And so people were pissed off. The New York Times said this morning that probably the only person who realized over the last 3 days that Andrew Cuomo was going to lose was Andrew Cuomo. And that's why he got so vicious and nasty over the last 3 days. And it didn't matter because he got crushed. He got crushed in this race by double digits. And so Zohran Mamdani, who and I went back and looked at this because somebody referred to it on the BBC this afternoon. Mamdani, in the very first poll that was taken in this race, polled 1%. 1%. And he ended up with 46.5% and defeated a former two-term governor. So New Yorkers are looking for change. Now, they were making fun of him on Fox News today and inadvertently made themselves look stupid by saying, look what this radical wants. This radical wants buses to be free. This socialist radical wants to give welcome baskets to newborn babies full of things like diapers and formula. It's like, my God, people, are you so far lost that that's radical to you? So another issue that they brought up, I want to throw this out for your comment as well, was that at least the British believe that this opens the door for an AOC presidential run because it shows that progressive Democrats are sick and tired of the DNC. They're sick and tired of being pushed around, and they're sick and tired of having to change their own personal views on issues to fit into where the Democrats demand they fit in. What do you think?
Well, I do think there's an impact, a huge impact on the national scene for Democrats. I don't know if AOC is the natural beneficiary of that. In some ways, she's definitely a creature of New York City. And I don't know how she will. I don't know. When I say, people say, I don't know how this, they mean like, I don't think it will. I literally just don't know how she plays in Nevada. I don't know. No idea.
No, neither.
She's definitely a very talented politician. I mean, and I think that, what's going on here in New York City is specific. All politics is local. We've been dealing with an exceptionally terrible mayoralty under Eric Adams, which came on the heels of another exceptionally terrible mayoralty under Bill de Blasio.
That's right.
It's been a bad run ever since Michael Bloomberg left office. And he wasn't an exciting mayor. He was a technocrat, but he was definitely a manager. Nobody really particularly, he wasn't likable or fun. No. But, you ate your spinach and you're probably better off for it. I think he did leave the city more organized, even though the haves have more and the have-nots have less. And that's how it is. I mean, I think it wasn't a failure. By the way, Michael Bloomberg spent $8 million
of his own money,
Zohran, and it did not work.
Well, let me ask you a question, Ted. Let me ask you a question. One of the things that the Washington Post didn't make clear was in the final tally of votes, Mayor Adams got 4%. Mm-hmm. So we already know that he's running as an independent in November, and Cuomo could run as an independent in November, which could split the vote among left of center voters and could lead to Adams winning again, but this time as an independent.
Quite the contrary. I totally disagree.
Okay, that was my question then. Do you agree or disagree with that? And did he not run in the Democratic primary and he got 4% of write-ins, or what was that?
He was still on the ballot, but then he withdrew because he was less popular than STIs. He was down in like the 4% or something like that.
4% is what he got.
Was just like, okay, I'm out, forget it. He was just, and then it was like, okay, I'll run, in the general election and just sort of see. A lot of New Yorkers up until now had thought he won't really run in November. I think Mamdani. So if Cuomo had won this, I think we would have heard the last of Eric Adams, never to be heard from again. Would never have run. But Mamdani now could set things up for himself. If Cuomo runs, he splits the anti-progressive left. This is I checked the voter registrations in this city. 65% Democratic, 11% Republican, everything else, right? There are no Republicans here, right?
No.
So in a field with like 10 or 12 candidates, as we just had, getting 44% of the vote is a major accomplishment. Okay,
huge.
It's a rout. We weren't expecting to see it with ranked choice voting any election results until July 1st. They came in pretty early last night. I knew from the exit polls yesterday afternoon that he was going to win. So, I mean, it was overwhelming. And so I think what happens is in the fall, if Cuomo runs, then he and Adams share the anti-left vote, and Mamdani wins, cruises to victory. So if I'm Adams, what I'm trying to do is get Cuomo to endorse me or at least drop out of the race. But I don't know what Adams can do to buy off Cuomo. If I'm Mamdani, I'm on the phone right now with Cuomo. I'm offering him a position in the administration, schools chancellor, for example. Very powerful.
Ooh, right.
That's what I'm doing. So you don't want Cuomo to run. Cuomo right now becomes the kingmaker, and I think Eric Adams definitely stands to benefit if Cuomo does not run. Then all of there is Curtis Sliwa, who I like quite a lot as a person, not so much politically.
I've met him a couple of times. Yeah,
I really like him.
I do too.
He's a true salt of the earth, real New Yorker, loves the city.
But he's going to raise $20,000 for this race.
Right.
Yeah. That's his problem.
He lives in a one-bedroom apartment with his girlfriend and a bunch of cats.
And a bunch of cats. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm all about that. I love cats, but I mean, it's so. But there are worse things than a Mayor Sliwa, for sure. We've seen worse things in the last 8 years. But he's not going to win. The Republican Party just is a joke in New York locally. So he's not a factor, ironically, even though he's a major party, mayoral nominee. It's just bizarre.
Ted, tell us about Lander and his 11%. He was in the news a couple of days last week, getting himself arrested during a protest. But a lot of people believed that he helped Mamdani by sort of backing off when it became clear that Mamdani could actually win this thing.
Absolutely. Brad Lander was the kingmaker in this election. We don't have exact results. They're not going to be tallied until next week because of ranked choice voting is so complicated. You have to go through sort of multiple virtual rounds to achieve. We only know that who the winner is because the margin of victory was so huge for Mandani, but that would not normally be the case. Brad Lander's the sitting comptroller of New York City.
Right.
He's about to leave. His term, I believe, ends December 31st. So at that point, so what happened is that under ranked choice voting, Mamdani and Lander decided to cross-endorse. They said they each told their supporters, please vote for me first, vote for the other guy, my friend, second. They even campaigned together. They rode rented city bikes around the city together.
Very cool.
It was so cute. And so very much you can tell that both of these men respect each other. Lander is twice old enough to be Mamdani's dad. Wow. And I think they kind of like each other. It's a bromance. And so I think genuinely Lander was really happy to see Mamdani win. And I think I would be surprised if there isn't some sort of, reward for Lander at some point, besides just, work well done. I think there will be something here. I think Mandani will almost certainly be the next mayor of New York City. But there is, this, but the thing is, the empire wants to strike back. The DNC does not.
Boy, they're mad. Oh my God. Yes. They're beside themselves over there.
They can't stand it.
No.
This is everything they did not want. And it's so great. Again, they have to decide what they want to do. I mean, I was thinking, John, you remember Joe Lieberman, the Democrat in name only, who was the senator from Connecticut. He ran, he was primaried out by a left-winger in the Connecticut primary.
That's right.
And then he ran as an independent in the general election. The National Party, the DNC, supported him against their own nominee.
That's right. They did.
That's how corporatist they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, at a certain point, for a long time, Democrats they haven't had the same tack as Republicans. Republicans would rather be in a party that's maybe run by a different kind of Republican, but that's winning. Democrats don't care. Well, I should say the Democratic Party, they don't care about winning. They want as long as they are running the levers of power in Washington, that's all they care about. They can lose every election, and then they can just fearmonger about the Republicans.
That is why.
But will that keep working is the question.
I don't think it will. And that is why the Republicans have had such wild success over the last 30 or 40 years, because they focused on local races, state legislatures. And remember, it's the state legislatures that draw the congressional boundaries after each 10-year census. And the Democrats have not. So the Democrats just take these Republican-drawn districts, lose year after year after year, lose the majority and never gain it back. But by God, they don't want to have a big tent party. They want corporatist, moderate Democrats, these middle of the road, what used to be a Republican in the 1970s, and they don't really care if they win or lose. This is one of the reasons why James Carville had his falling out with Hillary Clinton, because he wanted to spend DNC money in these local races, and Hillary said, absolutely not. Every cent goes to the national races. Stupid.
She's a compass that always faces south, right? I mean,
yes,
always consistently wrong. If I if I don't know something about something, I'll call her up. Whatever she says, I'll do the opposite.
Do the opposite.
Right. Oh my God. So this is kind of a somewhat obscene, maybe not obscene, but kind of crudely stated question, which I will not read. But isn't New York City the Zionist homeworld? Okay, so yeah, the Jewish vote is very important here, and support for Israel is a very big thing in New York politics. In fact, Harry Truman, one of the reasons that he decided to endorse the creation of the state of Israel in 1948 was because he needed New York in a very tight presidential election, and a lot of New Yorkers are pro-Israel. Now that said, 20% of New York Jewish Democratic voters did support Mamdani, and many more supported Lander. So there's that vote is changing. Not all Jews are Zionists, and and certainly there's a lot of liberal New Yorkers who are Jewish and do not approve at all of Israel or Netanyahu or their policies towards the Palestinians. Again, the times they are a-changing.
I saw a reference on BBC. I'm gonna look to see if I can find it. It was what Donald Trump posted on Truth Social about this race, and it was hilarious. It was so angry. Let me see if I can find it. He made fun of the way that Mamdani looks. Here it is. This is what Donald Trump wrote 2 hours ago. It's finally happened. The Democrats have crossed the line. Zohran Mamdani, a 100% communist lunatic, has just won the Democratic primary and is on his way to becoming mayor. We've had radical lefties before, but this is getting a little ridiculous. He looks terrible, in all capital letters. His voice is grating. He's not very smart. He's got AOC +3, dummies all, backing him, and even our great Palestinian senator, crying Chuck Schumer, is groveling over him. Yes, this is a big moment in the history of our country.
Donald Trump is hilarious.
And he's worried. That tells me he's worried.
And you know what? What he should look at is actually what this is the Trumpification of the Democratic Party. Populism is rising. Yeah. Populism took over the Republican Party under Donald Trump. What's just happened is Mamdani picked up a lot of the lessons from Trump. I mean, what was his message? It wasn't about wokeism. It wasn't even about Gaza. It was all about financial matters.
All of it. It was all economic. Yep.
The prices are too high. Groceries are too high.
Yes.
We're going to work on that. It was all about working class issues. This playbook could have come right out of basically out of the Trump playbook. And if anything, Trump should have said that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. By the way, anyone who thinks Mamdani doesn't look good is blind. I mean, he's a sharp-looking dude.
He's a very handsome man.
Cuts a fine figure in a suit. Granted, like me, he went to an unaccredited educational institution. He went to Columbia University. But, back then you had to be smart to get in when we got in. That's hilarious. I mean, it's just Trump being Trump and trolling. But lately, he's maybe we're talking at some point about is Trump starting to flail? I mean, the other day he dropped an F-bomb because he was so frustrated with Israel and Iran. I haven't seen any president do that on purpose, right? I mean, sure.
I think it was well planned. That F-bomb was well planned, and it quickly put the Israelis in their place. The Iranians don't care if Donald Trump swears at them. They don't care at all.
No.
But the reaction in the Israeli press was, wow, that was a shot across the bow for Benjamin Netanyahu. And I think he got what he wanted. There haven't been any more violations of the ceasefire. But we really should talk about that. Only if you're ready to move on from
I'm totally ready to move on. Just want to say I'm not looking forward to just how incredibly nasty this campaign is about to get.
Yeah,
it is going to be hideous. But anyway, let's do it. Let's move on to what happened or what didn't happen.
Ted, I feel like I have whiplash from the last couple of days on Iran. You know, we're friends, we're enemies, we're friends, we're enemies, peace, bombing, peace, bombing. It's like, my God almighty, come up with a policy and stick to it. But then in retrospect, there was a policy. I didn't understand it because it seemed irrational at the time, but maybe in this very strange way. Thank you, Eric. Was it all theater? I think it was all theater. And I think that was the plan from the very beginning. Donald Trump actually knew what he was doing and planned this whole thing out. And so who would have thought, Ted, 3 days ago, that we would have a legitimate ceasefire between Israel and Iran?
Not me. And I gotta say, also, my whole take on this had been that Iran was wussing out by broadcasting when they were firing missiles at Israel, and then at Qatar, at the U.S. base in Qatar, and they were broadcasting like, oh, hey, at 7 o'clock tonight, do not be looking for 100 missiles from us, and so it's like wink, wink. But you know what? I was paying so much attention to that, I didn't pay attention to Trump, who was basically doing the same exact thing, right? I mean, if you were going to bomb, if you and I were the president and vice president of the United States, and we were going to bomb Fordo, well, we wouldn't be talking about bombing Fordo, right? The first rule of Fight Club is don't talk about Fight Club. Like, which bombing, right? We wouldn't let them know we're coming. We're just like, sorry, it sucks to be you. But Trump kept saying, and it was all over the place. There's a plan. The Israelis want us to do it. I'm going to wait 2 weeks. I'm going to wait. It's like, these are the 3 exact places. Then we know that the satellite imagery picked up all of the semi-trucks arriving at Fordo to pick up something. Yeah. Maybe food delivery, but I doubt it. And they took off with, and they obviously took off with all of their enriched uranium. And they're gone, and with a bunch of other equipment and their centrifuges. And now we have this report that the DIA leaked, or someone at DIA leaked, or someone near who has access to the report leaked, and it says there's no damage of any significance done to the actual facility, and the nuclear program of Iran has only been pushed back perhaps by a few months. So I'm like, wait. Did we just risk World War III to put a hole in the ground and spend $1 billion? It may have cost several $1 billion, but probably about $1 billion to do this. I guess we did. Or maybe
it was $1 billion. Although, also on BBC about an hour ago, my dear and abiding friend, General David Petraeus, I'm being sarcastic. David Petraeus said, and how David Petraeus has kept his security clearance, I have no friggin' idea. But anyway, he said that he was briefed and that the DIA report was based on intelligence over which the intelligence community has low, confidence, low confidence. It was not a coordinated report of the intelligence community. It was specific to DIA. Now, DIA does these kinds of analyses literally every day. That they didn't say in the leaked report that they had low confidence in its veracity. They didn't say anything at all about the veracity. And a couple funny things came out of this. Again, just in the last hour, Tulsi took to Twitter and said, the president is right. The DIA report was wrong. The place was destroyed. We set them back years. And then she tweeted a second tweet. An active FBI investigation is underway to find the source of the leak. The person will be caught and prosecuted under the Espionage Act.
John, question. I know I'm getting old. I could be Bidening out, but isn't it strange to say that if the contents of this leaked report are false, and we're really pissed that it was leaked? I mean, can something that's a falsehood really be worthwhile information? I
know, right? My guess is, having watched things like this happen in Iraq over the course of many years while I was inside the CIA, I think there was probably significant damage. Even the Iranians said, they used the word destroyed when talking
About all three sites, or
about all three sites. Yeah, they used the word destroyed. And so thank you, Waterways. And so I think that I'm not taking a position. I'm not taking a side, rather. This isn't about taking a side. I think there probably was significant damage. It probably did set the Iranians back. The size of the bombs, and there were 18 of them, not 2 of them, by the way.
Right.
We used 12 all of the 30,000
bunker busters on the main site.
Yeah, that's right. I think we probably did set the Iranians back for a period, maybe as long as a couple of years. But now it's time to let the diplomats do what they're paid to do and carry out diplomacy. So we'll see what happens.
It's an awesome thing, actually. Look, I wish President Trump all the best. I mean, it does seem like he I don't know. Do you think he cons the Israelis? I
do. I think he tricked the Israelis. And I'll tell you what, it is hard to trick Netanyahu because he's been around the block more than once.
Yeah.
But it looks to me like Trump pulled one over on him. Then using the F-bomb on him yesterday, it's like, wow, man. I don't know. I looked at most of the major European papers today, and everybody is still a little bit worried, but they're sort of begrudgingly admitting that Trump fooled a lot of people on this.
Yeah.
So far, so good.
So interestingly, the latest messaging out of President Trump and in the White House is, I destroyed their nuclear program, so I want to negotiate with Iran. They're meeting. The Americans are meeting with the Iranians again soon, maybe tomorrow, but they're not going to talk about the nuclear program because, after all, there's nothing to talk about because it's been destroyed. DIA report notwithstanding. So I was like, now that's brilliant, because he can say, well, I destroyed it. So what is there to talk about if we're not talking about the nuclear program?
You know what? That's a good point, Ted.
I know that, and I think I know, but I want to hear what you think.
I think you may have hit on it. It's funny. We've been saying for weeks or months that Trump is obsessed with winning the Nobel Peace Prize.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about it all the time. He mentioned the Nobel Peace Prize 7 times in one Truth Social post a couple of days ago. 7 times. And he's mad that he doesn't have a Nobel Peace Prize and Barack Obama does. So as it turns out, 2 or 3 days ago, the Pakistani government nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize for...
So did some Republican congressmen, too. Which apparently they can. I checked it.
They can, because any elected member of a national parliament can nominate. So the Pakistanis did, because it was Trump that got in between Pakistan and India, so they didn't nuke each other a couple of months ago. And that happens every 10 or 20 years. Do you think it's possible that Donald Trump, and I'm going to caveat this by saying he would have to make serious progress with Iran? Do you think that's possible? And if it is possible, do you think a Nobel Peace Prize is realistic?
Yes and no. I think yes, progress is definitely possible now in a way that it never was before, because he's got the Israeli monkey off his back for the time being. It'll be back. It'll be back. But right now he's got some space. That's why he's moving quickly and breaking things, Elon Musk style. Yeah, I think he wants to normalize relations. I think he wants to exchange ambassadors. I think that's what this is about. He wants to bring an end to the situation, the status quo that's been extant since 1979, and normalize with the Islamic Republic. That's what it's about. He wants to do business with Iran, which is smart. We should have been doing business with Iran all this time. And by the way, if you ever wanted to sink the Iranian government, you normalize relations, you open it up to the world, you let them see the way everybody else is. That'll bring down the government. Okay.
Yeah.
But So you kill more, you'll get more bees, whatever, more honey with what is it? More bees with honey, whatever.
Yeah, then with vinegar. Yes.
Yeah, my insect metaphors aren't firing on all cylinders. But yeah, I think that's what this is about. Nobel Peace Prize? No, he ain't getting that, because for that he would have to make peace, for example, between Israel and Palestine or something like that. It's not enough for yourself to make peace.
Yes.
You have to broker peace. That's the requirement.
That's right. Just Samantha has a question. Who actually votes? How does somebody get the Nobel Peace Prize? Well, a whole bunch of people can make a nomination. Any elected member of a national parliament, any university professor, any former president or prime minister, and any previous Nobel Peace Prize winner can nominate.
And there's a committee too.
And there's a committee that actually, researches these things. And so the vote is done. Is it the Swedish parliament or is it the committee itself?
It's the committee itself.
It's the committee itself. Yeah. And then the king bestows the actual medal. Now,
the question is, the Iranians are notoriously slow and bureaucratic. I mean, I remember, applying for getting a visa there was like insane. So, but I mean, I know, obviously I'm an American, I get it, but still, I mean, they're slow. It's notorious. So would they be willing and able to move quickly to normalize relations with the United States? It's certainly something they've always wanted. So, I mean, this would be sort of like, I would think you'd just be able to you'd be pushing on an open door. If you said, hey, you guys want to normalize? And they'd be like, duh, we've been waiting for half a century. But, what do you think?
Yeah, I think what the Iranians want is the immediate lifting of at least some of the sanctions, because they need more than anything else. They need spare parts for their planes.
Yep, they sure do.
And spare parts for the oil industry, as well as dredging equipment.
The Israelis will freak out.
Yes. But, the Iranians are already able to get most of what they need from the Russians, the Chinese, and the Indians already. So a lot of this would just be symbolic. And to tell you the truth, what are Americans going to buy that Iran produces? I can tell you what they're going to buy. They're going to buy caviar, pistachios, and carpets. So it's
I'm buying carpets. I've got an Iranian carpet in my house right now.
I think I have 5 or 6 of them. Our lives are not going to change by opening relations with Iran, but the Iranians' lives will change.
Well, it'll change for some of us because there's going to be more tourism to Iran because, oh my God, there's a zillion things to see.
Oh my God, I can't wait to go to Iran.
It's
someday. Great. I've never been, but
it's fantastic. The people are great. A lot to do. It's great. Can't say enough about it.
Brian Becker and I used to talk all the time about going to North Korea. He's been to North Korea a couple of times. And I said, Brian, next time you go, you got to take me with you. And he hasn't been back. And now I'm not sure I would really want to go. I'd rather go to, I would feel unsafe. And I would much rather go to Iran. Mm-hmm. You've been to Cuba like I have. And it couldn't possibly have been any better. The people were absolutely lovely and kind, and the food was great, and the beaches were pristine, and great music, and an amazing nightlife. I was surprised at the gay nightlife that I saw in Havana, right, with rainbow neon signs, and it was crazy. Music into 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. So. Yeah, there are parts of the world Americans need to see. And if those parts of the world are open to Americans, things are going to change.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. So should we talk about Texas?
Yeah, let's talk about Texas.
All right. So maybe
this is bad.
All right. So a red flag law, correct me if I'm wrong here, is basically we have the Second Amendment that guarantees your right to own. I never understood, by the way, how it is kind of like that determines which guns we're allowed to have. Like, I can't buy, like, I can't have my own cannon,
Right.
but I can have a pistol, no problem. I can have a rifle, a long gun, no problem. I can have a semi-automatic rifle, no problem. But I can't get an automatic or a machine gun, no problem. But I might be able to get one under certain circumstances. Anyway, never mind that. The point is, Second Amendment under the U.S. Constitution guarantees all Americans the right to bear arms. The Supreme Court affirmed that fairly recently, a few years ago. And so even here in New York City, where they used to have strict gun control laws, you can possess a gun. And so Texas is, of course, a conservative state. Gun rights are really important to the local culture. But even in Texas, they had laws, they had an exception, which was if someone started to behave erratically, they seemed psychologically unfit, if they broke some laws, if they, let's say, beat their wife or whatever, the authorities under some conditions could swoop in and take their arsenal of weapons, right? And
Yes.
That's basically it, under a court order. Now, those laws are no more.
Yep, those laws are no more. I wrote an op-ed about red flag laws about 10 years ago, and people just beat me about the head and face. Because in most cases, I consider myself a leftist libertarian, right? I believe that in many cases, maybe even most cases, the government is the problem. It's not the solution to the problem. But banning red flag laws scares me, because if somebody is bona fide crazy and a psychiatrist deems them to be, unstable, dangerous, violent, this new law says that their weapons cannot be taken from them. And more than once in recent history, mentally ill people who were allowed to keep their weapons then went out and carried out mass shootings. Now,
like in Newtown, Connecticut.
Now compare us. That punk in Newtown, Connecticut at Sandy Hook killed, 31 children or 31 people, mostly children. He was legally permitted to have a gun. I'm not, because I'm a dangerous, convicted national security felon. Listen, telling the FBI a lie is a felony. So, I use this as an example. I'm sitting down with the FBI. It's a formal interview, and one of them says to me, "Hey, how about those Redskins? Or how about those Commanders?" It was Redskins at the time. And I say, yeah, they're amazing. And the FBI agent says, "Do you like the Commanders?" And I say, "Oh, I love the Commanders." I don't. I love the Steelers. I'm a Steeler fan. I'm just making conversation. But sure. I've told a lie to a federal officer. Okay, it's a lie. I know it's a lie. That's a felony. And I can be punished by up to 5 years in prison for telling that FBI agent that I love the Washington Commanders. Now, you normally don't get 5 years for making it's called making a false statement. You don't get 5 years. You get the federal sentencing guideline is 0 to 6 months. And you get to 6 months if you've been convicted previously. But it's a felony. And so you are banned from owning a weapon for the rest of your life. But that crazy kid in Newtown, Connecticut, who was legitimately insane,
right?
Not only did his parents believe he was insane, but the psychiatrist said he's insane, was allowed to own a gun.
Well, his mom gave them to him, right?
Yeah, his mom gave him the gun. Yeah. And he went and killed 31 people. I think like 28 of them were children, 26 of them, whatever it was. Yeah, we got problems in our legal system.
For sure. I always like to play devil's advocate. All right, so if the Second Amendment is, first of all, I don't think the Second Amendment would be in the U.S. Constitution if the country were brand new and we were having our constitutional convention today. Modern countries don't have this.
No.
But that said, we do. It's a big part of American culture. It's in the Bill of Rights.
Yep.
Should a right that is so fundamental be dischargeable by the abstract, subjective opinion of a psychologist
Right.
who's literally a practitioner of a field that didn't even exist 120 years ago.
Right. I think no, but that's just me.
So you're saying, so in other words, so a psychological opinion with a judge's signature should be enough. I mean, look, I agree. Basically, crazy fucking people shouldn't be allowed to have guns. I agree with that. But I guess the question is, the devil is in the details. How do you do it?
Yeah. Yeah. This is one of the reasons why I want a pardon so badly. Of course, the main reason is I would get my pension back. The Obama Justice Department seized my federal pension. But I really, really miss my guns. I really do. And I want them back. And
so did you have to sell them or give them away? Or what did you have to do? Or destroy them?
I had two guns. I had a 9mm Desert Eagle. And it was a gift from my father-in-law, and I gave it back to him. And then I had a Remington pump action 12 gauge. So that I had to sell. I sold it to a friend of mine. And not only can I not have a gun, I can't even possess ammunition. If I were to be found with one bullet, that is a 5-year mandatory minimum sentence straight back to federal prison.
That'd be a good way to set you up.
Yeah, and it's not what the Constitution says. The Constitution says I have the right to bear arms. It doesn't say you have the right to bear arms unless you've been convicted of a felony. And in fact, Congress passed a law saying back, like during the Clinton administration, saying that if you're a felon who lost his gun rights, you can apply to ATF to have your gun rights reinstated, but they refused to appropriate funds for those investigations. And so even though you can technically legally apply, you can't, there's no mechanism by which they can grant you your gun rights again.
That's so bizarre.
My lawyer, Bruce Fine, our friend and sometime guest on the show, told me that it's probably unconstitutional, but in order to challenge it, I have to get myself arrested,
right? Not good,
and convicted, and I have to get the 5-year mandatory minimum to have standing to sue the federal government. And there's another thing. Last week, very quietly, Congress, I should say, the House passed a bill that's now going to the Senate saying that in order to sue the federal government, you have to post a bond that would cover the government's expenses that the government accrues by defending the case. Now, the government never loses, right?
Poor government. Where could they find the money?
And so the only people who are going to be able to afford to sue the government are, those United, what's it called? Something United, the campaign thing.
Citizens United.
Citizens United. Corporations. They're going to be the only ones, and billionaires, the only ones who can afford to sue the government.
Oh, John.
It's a fascist move.
Parenthetically, LA Times, when I sued, I was the plaintiff.
Exactly.
I had to post bond. The plaintiff, had to post bond in case I lost, and then they awarded the poor, sad LA Times their attorney's fees for defending themselves against mean old me. $75,000.
Oh, Ted!
It was not a small amount of money. No.
Oh, Ted.
So it's like there's freedom ain't free. I don't understand. I mean, okay, the only thing I don't see why when people are released from prison, why their debt isn't paid.
Yeah.
I mean, you should be able to vote. All your rights should be restored. You should be made whole. You're done. You literally did your time. You were sentenced to time in prison. You served. You're done.
Yeah.
For Christ's sake. I mean,
give me my life back.
Yeah, or if you're too dangerous to be released, keep you in there.
Don't release me. I think
I don't understand Megan's
did I
law.
did I tell you about my right to vote? How I got that back?
No.
I'll tell you, man. And Terry McAuliffe, the former head of the DNC, the former governor of Virginia, whether you like him or not, this guy has a special place in my heart, and I'll tell you why. When I got out of prison, I had 3 years of probation. That was ridiculous. So after the second year, I said to the probation officer, "Hey, my lawyer is going to write a motion to lift my final year." And she said, "Oh no, don't spend the money doing that. I'll put in to lift your final year. You don't need to be on probation." So she did. She lifted it. Or the judge lifted it. So that was after 2 years. That was the summer of 2017. So I immediately filed a form online asking the governor of Virginia to reinstate my right to vote. Apparently, Governor McAuliffe had heard of me or had followed my case or something, because not only did I get a letter saying that my right to vote was reinstated, I got this big envelope, like an 11 by 14, and I pull it out, and it's this decree from the governor with the gold stamp and the governor's signature pardoning me. Now, it was symbolic because I hadn't committed a state crime,
Right.
but it was a lovely, lovely gesture. And so I took it with me to the courthouse to re-register to vote. And I was able to vote, that day. It just happened to coincide with the primary. So I was able to vote. I never applied for a pardon, but he gave it to me anyway. We've had a couple of good questions here. Marble, John, are there differences in post-release life between violent felonies and non-violent? No. That's one of the crazy things about the stupid system that we have. It's that you can commit, bank robbery or murder on federal land or whatever, or you can tell the FBI agent that you really, really love the Washington Commanders when you really don't, and you're treated exactly the same way. Yeah, Terry McAuliffe. Isn't that amazing?
That's crazy. Well,
yeah.
Terry McAuliffe, for people who don't know, big
figure
for the Clintons.
Yeah,
he was I think he financed the house.
Yeah,
the Clintons
I think he did. Yeah, I think that's right. It was it was a genuinely kind gesture. Yeah. Thank you, John. Thank you very much, John.
John McGuire, for the donation. Much appreciated.
Ted, it might be just a little bit too early, but
let's do it.
We had some good news.
We do have some good news, and then we can get into the BP deal. So this Friday, we're going to have a special guest, Jake Tapper, the author of the book about the Biden administration, and it's called Original Sin, and it's about of course, it's the big blockbuster book that everybody's been talking about for the last few months, and it details in exquisite detail the all of Biden's growing dementia, senility, physical and mental frailties. Anyway, Jake Tapper is going to be here on DeProgram with the two of us. It's going to be awesome. 1 p.m. live Friday.
1 p.m. live Friday.
Where?
And he's given us 45 uninterrupted minutes. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, bring your questions. We did.
Yes, bring your questions.
To Jake's credit, he has not imposed any rules or no fly zones. If he does, we'll let you know, and that's okay if he wants to do that. I mean, but I don't think he's that kind of guy.
No,
I think he's coming to talk, and and we're gonna have a great conversation. It's this coming Friday, Friday, June 27th. It's in other words, 2 days from now, day after tomorrow. So
It's going to be great.
The calendar. It's 1 p.m. Eastern time, live. Of course, obviously, for people who can't listen live, it will be obviously there, recorded, and you can stream it anytime you want. But very much looking forward to touching base with Jake, talking to him about the book, how he researched it, everything. So that's a big deal. So Michael is, of course, I know this is probably the hardest question that he's going to be asked. Can you please ask him why he waited months to put out crucial info about the election? I'm sure he's been asked that, and we will ask them that. We will, of course, ask him.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will.
I'm sure he has a good answer for it. I think I know what his answer is going to be. But anyway, we will. Look, I think it's the biggest political scandal in U.S. history. To have a 4-year presidential term that arguably was, basically a fraud, and on the voters. So the whole thing's a nightmare. But we all lived through it, and we will get through it. Thank you to Sky Martin Systems for the donation. Thank you for helping me stay sharp in a world full of spin. Much respect. Yeah, that's the question.
Thank you very much.
Who really was president? The book answers that question. I would recommend, by the way, if you really want to have a best shot, because I think a lot of listeners are going to be here, far more than the usual crew. So you guys get the heads up here. If you really want your questions to be prioritized, read the book before Friday, or at least do a quick skim so that you'll have some specific questions to ask Jake, rather than sort of generic, like, I know you wrote a book about Biden being senile, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because we're going to go deep here. So
it's going to be great. One thing about Jake Tapper, when I went to prison in February of 2013, Jake was the first journalist that drove to the prison to interview me. Wow. This had never happened at this prison before, at least with the administration that was in place when I was there. And they were beside themselves. Now, I was aware of the rules because I had looked up the rules. And the rules said that I got to say yes or no, whether I wanted to do an interview or not. And I said, absolutely yes. And so Jake would ask me these questions. And of course, the warden is sitting right next to me, like immediately next to me. And I would say things like, well, like he'd say, how do you get through your day? And I'd say, well, the hardest part is dealing with bozos like this guy next to me. And he just sat there like a statue, the warden, furious.
Really?
Furious. Yeah. But he was awesome. He was just such a great guy, an honest broker with good questions, and he really did me right. He really did.
Well, that's good. He's also a big fan of political cartooning.
Yes.
But I'm not looking forward to. I don't want to talk about that.
No.
As a political cartoonist, but I really want to dig deep into the Biden situation and just sort of I'd like that story to be I'd like the Republicans to conduct some oversight. I know they've done a little bit, but we'll get into that. So that's going to be great. So can't wait. All right. So let's talk about last but not least, a big development in the energy business. It looks like, it's not just looks like, Shell, giant Dutch oil conglomerate, is looking to buy British Petroleum. This would be the biggest merger in the sector since Exxon and Mobil got together to form what is now ExxonMobil. Obviously there's concerns and considerations about monopolization and how the effect that this could have on consumer prices, as well as all energy sector prices across the board. Oh, yeah. This is probably not good news for consumers, right?
Definitely not. And I can't believe that these two companies would even think that they could pass regulatory muster, right? Mm. I mean, already we struggle with monopolies. Already Google's or not Google, but Alphabet is in danger of being broken up. Can you imagine the absolute enormity of a company made up of both Shell and BP together? I can't even fathom it.
Well, so the thing is, though, I mean, in favor of it, and I agree with you, is the fact that BP is in real trouble. I mean, their share prices are down about a quarter, about 1/4 over the past year because they tried to go hard into green energy. And then with the advent of the Trump administration pivoting away from it all, and generally things just moving more slowly, it turned out they bet too big too early, and they got burned, and they got left holding the bag. So the argument here is going to be, what if BP goes under, and that's it. On the other hand, the market seems to think that this is going to go through. BP is way up in right now.
Yeah, not surprised. Yeah.
So
thank you, John Doe. It's a little bit late here in Spain. It's midnight, but it was one of those really long days that started at 7. And just as I would feel myself getting tired, I'd say, okay, we done now? No, we have cocktails with the mayor. I'm like, dang it. All right. We done now? No, we're getting a tour of the such and such a palace. I'm like, oh my God. I just got back to my room in time to jump on the laptop and have this conversation with Ted.
All right. Well, I think at that point, we've got to let you go to sleep, but with all that. And we'll be back. I guess this Friday's show will be in lieu of Saturday.
Okay.
So no show Saturday at noon. Instead, we'll be live with Jake Tapper, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Friday, June 27th. Tune in. He's the author of Original Sin, the book about Biden's diminished state that forced him to withdraw from the presidential race last year. And basically, it retraces his diminishment beginning back in 2019. Something that I got to say, I wrote and drew about extensively and took a lot of heat over. So that's just, so it's a little bit of vindication. Anyway, so I think we're sufficiently deprogrammed until we see you at 1 o'clock. I don't know, should we just come on at 12:45 maybe and have a little intro, or should we just, I think we should probably do that.
Yeah. Why don't we do that, Ted?
Okay, yeah. So Jake will be here at 1. We'll come in a little early, maybe 12:30 or 12:45. We'll advertise it on the socials. Look there. I mean, if you don't want to hear all the beforehand stuff, just come in at 1 o'clock. That's when Jake's going to be here. But we'll probably set it up a little bit before, and maybe if there's any breaking news related to Iran or Mamdani or anything else, we'll get into that before we bring in Jake. But or not, whatever. We'll figure it out. But 1 o'clock, that's when Jake's going to be here. Thanks, everyone. Bye, John. Have a good
Bye-bye, Ted. Bye, everybody.